Okay, welcome everybody to session 190 of Faith and Calm. And I'm talking right now because Yaskell Shimon, he's going to come on. He is on already. He's in Arizona visiting his mother. And anyway, I want to welcome everybody here. And the class tonight is called The Pain of Being Single. And we're going to talk about the pain of being single, and we're going to talk about the power of being the person that you always wanted to be. Okay, so without much ado, I'm going to turn over the camera to Yeheskel Shimon in Phoenix, Arizona. Oh, it's a split screen. How come? Yeheskel Shimon.
Don't do that. I don't know how to change it. Can you
I don't know
fix
how to
that?
change it either. No, I don't know how to do that.
All right.
I don't know how to do it. Okay. Don't know how to do it.
I've gotten stuck in that too. I don't know how to fix that either.
Okay, I'll try, but you go ahead, Yeheskel Shimon. Start speaking.
Okay. I realize that the topic just really doesn't fit the scenery very well. I'm just 70 degrees, no humidity, and a pool in the background, etc. But maybe that is the idea here for this topic today. So this is largely based on two things that I listened to this week. I do encourage you highly to go listen to the sources of it. Rabbi Manis Friedman and the topic, the title actually comes directly from Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson, who was talking to a bunch of people who had been single for a long time and suffering. But I think that what he said, I'm going to give a synopsis of it, but please do go listen to the whole thing. Okay, please go listen to the whole thing because I think it has a lot to do, even if you aren't single or any other challenge that you're facing in your life, this has a lot to do with it. And the first thing you said, the first thing we have to all understand.
Where can we listen to it? You said we should listen to it. Where?
Yes, I'll send you. I'll give you the link. Okay.
You want? Yes, what did you?
I'll post the link.
You'll post.
I'll post the link
okay.
I guess I can post it in the Zoom channel. Or I can give it to my wife to post too. All right. So, but you can definitely, if you ever will go to yeshiva.net. So there on yeshiva.net is his latest classes, and there'll be one called The Pain of Being Single. And the first thing that he tells you is as follows. He says, we're really unfair to ourselves. People go around and they say to themselves, my life is worthless. Oh, everybody else is getting married. I'm alone, and so forth. Why is my life so miserable? And they're acting like, like life only begins once you get married and you're in a family and so forth. And that's not fair to yourself. That's not fair to your friends. It's not fair to your parents. Not fair to your. It's not really true. You every day that you are alive, every moment you're alive, you're not waiting to start living. You are living today. You really are. And and changing it and looking at yourself that way, saying, okay, fine. It's true. Give yourself the space. Things are real. Sometimes they're really painful. It's okay to cry about them. It's okay to be upset about them. But don't say that you're not living your life, because everybody's life journey is different. They're on a different path. And some people have a very simple, superficial, easy road. And that's God's mystery of how he decided to run the universe, and so forth. And then from other people, he says, I really want you to go in and learn more about life and not be superficial, and to grow and develop yourself and to become a bigger person. And that's happening every single day that you're alive. Every single day there's a challenge there, there's opportunities there, and you're able to become more somebody who's deeper, more impressive, and so forth. And so, yes, we all pray that everybody who needs a shidduch on this line, who's listening to this, gets their shidduch immediately, that they're happy, they have family, they have children, they all deserve it. That's what that's the way we would run the world. But God has his own way of deciding when and how and what to do and so forth. And you can't tell God, he's made a mistake. You can't tell it yourself that you're a mistake. And you can't, and you know what? The negative attitude itself makes it harder for yourself and for other people to be attracted to you. So, you don't want to be self-defeating. So it's clear that that we have to be able to say every moment of the day, there are new things coming into my life, new people I meet, even the failed dates and the other kinds of stuff. You come away learning something from that. You learn more about yourself, you learn more about other people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that as an introduction, those 2 points really got to be kept right. That it's life doesn't begin when you get married. It's your every day you are living, and the life is maybe different than other people. But don't put yourself down. Don't say I'm everything I was doing is worthless. My life is meaningless, etc. You're very meaningful. You're doing a lot of stuff, and everything is a step in along that path. So then he gives a couple pieces of practical advice, and he says, you know what? One of the important things to do is that nobody should be alone, and everybody needs to develop for themselves a team around them to encourage them and to support them. You have to develop a team Shalamis, a team Suri, a team Mali, whatever the team has to be. That should be your team. And sometimes you expect that, close members of your family will be that team. But you know what? Maybe they're not there. But you know what? You have to have that team, because those team members are going to help you find your shidduch. You're going to be able to be open with them. You need to have that team. When people are alone, that's the worst thing. And here's the line that I heard from Rabbi Manis Friedman. He says, I don't know if you remember it, but there is this Jewish singer. His name was Billy Joel. And he made he has a very deep philosophical, psychological song that he sings. You know what the song is? It's called The Piano Man. You ever hear of it? And in that Piano Man song, he says, they are drinking a cup called loneliness, but they're sharing a cup called loneliness because that is better than being alone. And it's an interesting insight, that loneliness can be shared. Sometimes that's actually the ingredient for the shidduch, and so forth. Two people get together and they've been alone, and they actually feel that, they have somebody else who understands them, because they understand, what loneliness is all about. But then you're not alone, you're with somebody. So being alone, not being together with other human beings, cutting yourself off, that's the worst thing for the human being. And in fact, that is what God said at the very beginning of creation, said it's not good for man to be alone. So this experience of being alone, that's not good. Human beings need a social network. They need to have people they can talk to. They need people that they can run ideas by. They need to not be alone. And you know what? And then you can share your loneliness with other people and the feelings of loneliness. And don't denigrate, that it is very hard. It is very difficult. It is seemingly impossible. And that's okay. That's part of but on the flip side, that's not your definition of who you are. And then he was taking a lot of questions and answers. And there were some interesting questions and answers there. So one of them was, how do you know that this is your shidduch? So he brought up the story that you may have heard before from Rabbi Leibel Groner. Rabbi Leibel Groner was recruited to be the Rebbe's secretary back in 1949 before he became the Rebbe. And in 1954, he was out dating, and he met his future wife. And he went to the Rebbe because the Rebbe was both his boss and his Rebbe. And he wanted to ask, he said, I've been dating her and I want to know, does the Rebbe, does the Rebbe approve of this as a shidduch? And the Rebbe said an interesting line to him. What did the Rebbe say to him? The Rebbe said, this is something that your mother cannot answer. This is something that your father can't answer. And this is something that I can't answer for you. In fact, also your mind cannot answer this question. It has to come directly from your heart. It's finding the shidduch is not going to be an equation. You can say yes, this, not this, or something else. It is something that has to come from something inside of you saying, I want to be with this person for the rest of my life. This is the person I want to share with my rest of my life with. Don't go into a shidduch. Then, of course, obviously saying, I think it's the right person and makes sense to me, etc. Because if your heart isn't telling you that it's the right person, then it's not the right person. And he followed up with another story like this. There was a girl who wrote him. She was heartbroken. She had been going out for a while with this guy, and he decided to cut it off. And Rabbi Rabbi Jacobson was thinking that what she's going to say is, well, I feel so bad. Maybe I said something wrong or something else. And no, she said, you know what? The reason I'm so upset is because I'm in love with him, and he decided to break this off. So he told her a story from a letter that he saw from the Rebbe to some woman. And what was the story? The story was also a similar case. She'd been going out with a guy for a while. He decided to break it off. She wrote the Rebbe about how bad she felt. And the Rebbe wrote her back saying, it's interesting. When you were beginning this dating process, you were debating a lot. Is he right? Is he wrong? You weren't sure. You were unclear and so forth. And now he's broken it off. You should actually be happy, because what it means is as follows. You were right to be uncertain to whether he was really committed to you. What you need is somebody who's head over heels committed to you. And if he can break it off, that meant that he never was emotionally connected with you. And you don't want to find that out 5 years into the marriage, that he's just sort of, doing it because it makes sense and so forth. So he was able to, so actually he saved you because you really want a marriage where the guy is in love with you 24/7, all the way, completely. So an interesting insight into the whole idea of marriage. And the third one, I think, was the most unusual question and answer that I heard. And it was as follows. There was a guy there, I guess, who had heard these other statements. And so he wrote Rabbi YY, and he asked this question. He says, listen, I've been going out with this girl. I like her, but let me preface it with another story. So there was a girl who wrote a question, a guy who wrote a question. He says, when is the right time to tell the person on a date that I have serious medical problems? So Rabbi YY said, I really don't know the answer to that. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a marriage therapist and so forth, but I did hear from somebody who's a very big Rav in the Litvish world. And the guy said, you wait until the third or fourth date to do that. You don't want to tell it right away at the first. You want to wait until it's the third or fourth date, but you don't want to go on too long because then there'll be emotional connection. So you give her some space in order to be able to make that decision. So this other guy who wrote in, and he said, it's I have this problem, and I'm going out with this girl, and but I still have feelings for men, and I don't know when I should tell her this and how I should tell her this. The rabbi said, whoa, what a heavy question. I really don't, it's a very, very personal question and a very difficult question. First off, he said, I want to thank you for not being political and dictatorial, like some people who say, this is the way I am. This is the way, accept me as I am. This is who I am. No, instead, you protect yourself. You go out with girls. You don't go engage in homosexual acts. And so I appreciate that you realize that human beings are plastic and they can change, and that this feeling may be something that will disappear over time. So first thing I encourage you is don't go into this marriage unless you can 100% commit to her. That's for sure, because it's not fair to her. It's not fair to anyone. And I'll tell you another story that he was personally involved with. He was involved with this person, and this person had the same story. And he went on a date with this girl. And after a few dates, he decided to open up and tell her. And it turned out that she turned around and said, that's interesting, because I actually have some feelings for women. And and they developed, I guess, this was an ability for them they understood each other to an extent. I don't know. He didn't go into it, whether they got married or not. Maybe it's not really relevant or not. But it's sort of, I thought, was an interesting window into human beings and into the mystery of this whole business of the shidduch process. That there's somebody out there who's your bashert, and they understand you better than anyone else in the world. And and they are going to be able to feel and understand the kind of weaknesses and the kind of problems that you have, and nobody else is going to be able to do that. And that's sort of it's a mystery how the Abishter works all this thing out, but it's also a mystery that there is somebody there who will pick up and say, you know what, I can be vulnerable, and I can this kind of thing. I actually can relate on it. Many other people would probably run for the hills, but this girl, she didn't run for the hills because she actually had a similar a problem. So it's very, very, very interesting how all this thing works out. And the main thing is not to be alone. Don't let people to be alone. Reach out, make yourself a social network. And I think that all helps bring the ultimate connection. And we should everybody should be able to find their shidduch immediately. And Gula Shlema. And I said I would talk shortly. And I think that's really all I really had to say for this week. Greetings from Phoenix. It's a good week here. And so far, things are going quite well. And enjoy. Okay, I'm going to turn over the microphone now to my wife.
Okay, and I'm going to unpin you. Okay, good. Okay, good. So, hello, everybody. And thank you, Yaskel Shimon. And enjoy Arizona. And so I'm not going to speak long either. This is going to be a short class. Let me just turn off this noise maker. Okay. So, Yaskel Shimon and I don't have as much practice as everybody in this area, but we certainly have practice in being single. We did not meet when we were young. And it's a situation that's very close to our hearts. So before I go into that, I'm going to say the four things that I always say, which are important to know for every situation in life. Number one, that the Rebbe told that we are in an extraordinary time in Jewish history. Everybody knows it right now. I mean, what's happening now is just totally, totally extraordinary. And what does it mean that it's extraordinary? The Rebbe told us that we're actually in, here's a picture of the Rebbe, and we're actually in, it's a glare here, that we're actually in the unfolding of the redemption. And I just read a talk of the Rebbe today, and it's very interesting. He mentions the source of the word Palestinian, and it's very, very, very interesting. Palestinians, the original Palestinians, whatever, they were people with no borders, people who had, there was just like into everything, this, no sense of borders, no sense of boundaries. And there is a saying in Torah that when Mashiach is here and we have the Beis Hamikdash, we are going to have happiness in a Palestinian way, meaning happiness without any borders. That's the other way is the unholy way, and what we're going to enjoy is happiness with no borders. It's going to be absolutely amazing. So anyway, we're in this time. Our souls were handpicked to be in this time. We have all the tools we need. We have the Torah, which is our guidebook, and the mitzvahs, which are our power tools. And what we're doing tonight actively advances the cause of the redemption. Rebbe said that learning about it is the fastest way to get there. And yeah, okay, good. So and I want to say that the Rebbe told us. He hinted again and again in Sicha after Sicha that even the Rebbe never talked about himself in the 40 years, in the more than 40 years that he was that we heard him giving talks as Rebbe. He never drew attention to himself at all. He always credited everything to the previous Rebbe. If something great happened, he said, "Oh, it's the previous Rebbe's merit." But in the last year, he broadly hinted that he is Mashiach, and he even said that the grave will have no dominion on Mashiach, which is an extraordinary thing to say because he was healthy when he made that comment. So anyway, um, so I'm going to talk a little bit about eh, eh, being single, and I'll just say that Sari and I both know this wonderful rabbi who used to be in Monsey. He's not alive anymore. His name was Rabbi Israel Tauber, and he taught at this this seminary for women that we went to. And he told us again and again, he told us that a person is obligated to do good hashtadlis. Hashtadlis means efforts. If there's something that you want in life, let's say you want a cure, a husband, something that you really can't live without. It's like so fundamental to you. So a person is obligated. Hashem could give us everything as a gift, but he doesn't work that way. Hashem likes us to put in our own efforts. But as Rabbi Tauber said very clearly, you need to put in good efforts, but you don't need to put in perfect efforts because it doesn't rely on the efforts. It doesn't rely, the outcome does not rely on your efforts. You are obligated because Hashem says you're obligated to put in good hishtadlus. That means you go see matchmakers, shadchanim, who have a good reputation, who are successful people, successful in this, and who have an understanding of people. You pick the best people, just like you would pick. You're obligated if you have an illness to pick the best doctors. So too, you can pick, you look for good matchmakers, and you don't just call them once and expect them to remember you for the rest of their lives, because they don't. They are very busy people. So there was a shadchanit, a matchmaker in Monsey, and she knew me. I came to her for Shabbos, and I talked to her formally as a shadchanit, as a matchmaker. And once I called her after I hadn't seen her for a few months, and I called her and I said, "Isn't there anything for me?" And she said, "Shalom is Yehudis." She said, "People who are serious about shidduchim call me every 6 weeks to find out what's up. Who did I meet that's new?" She said, "You're not serious." But I didn't know. I thought you call them once, you give them your resume, and that's it. No, that's not the way you do it. You give them your resume, and you get them to be familiar with you. You call them regularly. Every 6 weeks is a good idea, she said. And you say, "What do you have for me? Is there anything out there?" And that way, they have you in the front of their mind. It's much more. It's a very, very, very good thing to develop. And I'll say in my own process of being single, and I was single for many years. I was frum and single, observant and single, not as many as many other people, but I was observant and single for many years, and I watched many of my friends get married. Most of my friends get married, and I tried everything under the sun. And if you want, I'm very, very, very happy to either email you or send you an essay that I wrote many years ago, how to get married, and it's a lighthearted essay, but it has some heartfelt advice in there, and anyway, after years of trying many different things, one day I thought, you know what? I didn't just miss being married. It's not just that you miss having that significant other in your life. That's extremely painful, and it's a deep need, and it's a deep thing that you miss. But person also misses the entire lifestyle that goes along with being a married person, and to some extent, you can. There's no reason you can't have that lifestyle, So, so when I had that insight, I started making Shabbos. I started inviting guests. I started cleaning my house in a different way. I started making real meals instead of joke meals, and I started living like a married woman, and and lo and behold, very shortly after that, very shortly after that, I met Yeskel Shimon and I got married 6 months after we met. And so I think there's something powerful to that. There's something powerful to showing God that, you're not giving me the person right now, but I'm going to start living the life. And then when you see that I've created a vessel for your blessing. I'm homemaking right now. I'm homemaking now. Please put in the ingredient that only you can put in. So anyway, I could say more, but I'm going to end there, and we can have questions and answers at the end. I'm just going to tell a little miracle story because it's just a sweet little story. I write to the Rebbe regularly. The Rebbe, it's a custom that for years within the lives of the previous Rebbes, there were many times that people could not reach the Rebbe and the Rebbe of the time. Either the Rebbe was thrown in jail by the Russians, or they were thrown in jail just for being Jewish, just for doing something Jewish. So many times they couldn't. A person would have a life crisis or something very important, and they couldn't write to the Rebbe. They couldn't. They couldn't communicate with the Rebbe, and so they would write, even if there were people. There was I believe it was the Frierdiker Rebbe that a very famous Chassid, uh, Rabbi Futterfass. So he he was in Russian prison. They weren't going to take his mail and send it for him, and he couldn't. It probably didn't even have a pen and paper. So he thought a letter in his mind and sent it through his mind. Sent it to the Frierdiker Rebbe, and the Frierdiker Rebbe communicated. His wife had escaped from Russia and he agreed to it, and she settled in England. And the Frierdiker Rebbe communicated with Rabbi Futterfass's wife and said, "I received the letter from your husband." So anyway, there's no bounds when there are people like that, and that on that level, there's no bounds. And the Rebbe, right before his stroke, the Rebbe really pushed his secretariat, pushed. His secretariat are 4 rabbis. He pushed his secretariat to publish all the answers that he had given to people over the last 40 years. The Rebbe would receive 800 to 1,000 letters a day. And the Rebbe wrote countless replies. And the Rebbe said, publish the replies, take off the name of the person I sent it, and just publish them. And he pushed and pushed and pushed them. It was like and it seemed like he knew that there was an era that would be coming up where people couldn't contact him directly. And so the number of miracle stories through letters to the Rebbe are phenomenal. I have had phenomenal miracles through writing to the Rebbe. And so I just want to tell you a sweet thing that I just read. There's a woman, her name, she lives in Brazil. Her name is Mrs. Garbachnik. And she gave birth last year, I guess. She gave birth to a couple of baby girls, to twin baby girls, right before Pesach, a couple of days before Pesach. And the girls were a month premature. One of the babies was just fine, and the other baby, it was fine, but it was premature. It couldn't go home. It needed a neonatal unit, and it was Pesach, and the mother didn't know what to do. If she went home with the one baby, it's too far. There's no way. She couldn't go to the hospital. She couldn't visit the baby in the hospital. If she stayed in the hospital, she wouldn't have a real Pesach. She would have a very difficult Pesach. She had just given birth, and she'd just given birth to twins, which I imagine is not an easy thing to do. And what about the little baby at home that wouldn't have her? So she made a very difficult decision, and she decided that the people who that she and the other baby needed to be home, and they needed to, and so she decided to go home. but right before she went home, she wrote a letter to the Lubavitch Rebbe, and she said, Rebbe, I have to go home. It's a good neonatal unit. They're going to take care of the baby. But please, Rebbe, I feel awful. My baby's going to be here and I'm going to be home. Rebbe, you watch out over her, okay? And whatever, she probably put the letter into Igros Kodesh, which is Igrot Kodesh, which is what people do. And she came back after Yontif. She came back immediately after Yontif. She was right at the hospital, and her baby was fine. And the nurse, who was very familiar with the baby, um, the nurse said, "By the way, who is that in that?" Uh, Before the mother left, and even as soon as the babies were born, the mother put a picture of the Rebbe. Mother put, how do I get it without a glare? Anyway, the mother put a picture of the Rebbe in each crib. That's what's done with Shir Hamalos. You put the picture of a very holy person so that the first things that the baby sees are a holy face. And Shir Hamalos, that's Shir Lamalos. I think it's number 121. And and that's what's in a baby's crib. So this nurse said, I'm who is the picture of that man in the baby's crib?" And the woman didn't want to go into a whole big Megillah. Oh, it's Lubavitch Rebbe, and that's just what we do. So she just said, "It's my grandfather." And the nurse said, "Oh, nice! It's so nice. He came to visit over the holiday." So anyway, that's just a little story. And with that, I'm going to turn off the recording. And if anybody has any questions, Yaskel Shimon or I would be happy